Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about Jessica Jones. That's right, it did just drop right here on Netflix, and we're going to be reviewing episode 1 and episode 2. And I'm going to be doing the entire season, 2 episodes a day, most likely, to get it down a little bit more quicker. But yeah, I just finished watching 1 and 2. We're going to talk about some positives, some negatives, and of course some nitpicks. And some things that hopefully get better as the season progresses. Positive number 1, obviously, this is where the show either makes or breaks, most likely, and that's with Kristen Ritter. Shout out to Kristen Ritter because, 1, she is a very good actress in the show, and she plays her role perfectly. Now, at first, when the show first started, in the first few minutes, I was like, I don't really like this. I don't know why her performance seems like it's the typical Kristen Ritter thing where she's kind of like whiny, and whatnot. But everything else I've pretty much seen in. I know she's capable of good acting, but this was, a problem easily fixed by the time, 5 minutes rolled around. I was pretty confident in her that she was going to, make a pretty believable drunk in New York City. If anybody see the apartment, the Don't Trust to Be in Apartment 23, that was a reference to that. If anybody's seen the show, most likely not. It got canceled. But she's great. She's a very complex character. She's not necessarily the typical. She's not, the typical hero that you see in these Marvel movies and whatnot, where she's happy and she's likable and she's got her makeup, she's got everything fixed and everything's working well for her. What the Netflix shows, at least what I'm seeing, is that they pretty much have, they have their things where it's not as light, they're not just dropping one-liners and it's not necessarily any consequences. There's consequences for these people. These are real people with real problems, with real mortgages to pay. Where in the Marvel world, yes, they have houses and whatnot, and they kind of show that, but at the same time, they also seem like they have so much fun with dropping these one-liners, age of one-liners, as somebody once said, where they're just having so much fun, and it seemed like, let's lift this building up, let's do that, there's no consequences, we'll laugh about it later. Where this show, it's a bit more darker, and hell, it even makes Daredevil look like, a PG show, the way it is. Jessica Jones is definitely not kid-friendly, most likely. But Kristen Ritter, she's great, she does her job well. Mike Coulter, which plays Luke Cage, I think I really liked his performance for the first few episodes. He played it very smoothly, but also very subtle at the same time. So I kind of liked that. And at least Luke Cage is not necessarily an angry guy, most likely. He seemed like he's very calm. He doesn't want problems. Eventually, I was wondering at first, because this is going to be spoilers, but I was wondering at first, would he actually get his powers? And obviously we eventually see his powers in the show. But yeah, Mike Coulter plays his part well. He's charismatic, I say in here, which unfortunately did not come across where he's playing Spartan Locke. But that's neither here nor there. This is a different thing entirely. Carrie-Anne Moss, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just Carrie-Anne Moss, and this is kind of like the thing. People have said that she's like the female Keanu Reeves. To me, I found her very stiff, and she seemed stiff, by the way, and very uncomfortable for some reason. She didn't necessarily seem like she was, because she plays a lesbian lawyer. Her part was originally a man's part, and here it's a female, and not only the female, but it's a lesbian female. And that's fine and all good, but for some reason, Carrie-Anne Moss just seems very uncomfortable playing it. Or maybe it's just her face. It doesn't really have many emotions. She's probably the most emotionless person in here, which is something since, Jessica Jones says she doesn't really like emotions or whatever it may be. I like the noirish feel. It has a very old school noirish feel. You have the narration, you have the city streets, you have some fog and whatnot, the dark alleys. The mysteriousness of the city, that's what you kind of like about, detective stories, noirish tales. And they combine that very well between a superhero show and then a, detective type of thing. And then not only that, but you also kind of have some elements of psychological thrillers. Now, Jessica Jones is a private eye. I'm guessing in this version of her, she is a former superhero, but eventually becomes a private eye. Episode 1, she's looking for, she's hired to look for this girl that has gone missing. She left from Omaha and whatnot, and It eventually leads her to Kilgrave, played very greatly creepy by David Tennant. But most David Tennant, he's great in here. He's pretty much great in anything he's in, or at least sometimes usually the best part of the show. But he adds to it. A hero is only as good as his villain, and a villain is only as good as his hero sometimes. But they both do a good job. They both have great chemistry against each other, and eventually leads to the Purple Man, aka Kilgrave. He, in the past he ran, Jessica pretty much insane. He got into her head, he got her nuts, and then she eventually got away. He's dead, but it turns out he's actually not dead, and now he's coming after her, and everybody and whatnot. Eventually, the girl Hope, which is the girl Jessica Jones was hired to look for, she eventually kills her own parents because Kilgrave put it inside her head to do it. In episode 2, she is trying to get her out, get her, free because she's the only one that actually believes her. Back to some of the performances, for their relationship, I know in the comics, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, they eventually get together and they have a kid and whatnot. Now, I think this is probably because they're just meeting most likely, and eventually they have to build up on their relationship. But I think Cage and Jones most likely just seemed like they're just wounded warriors. It's like Captain America and Falcon. Obviously, mine's a sexual thing, but Captain America and Falcon, where they both were wounded soldiers. They lost people. And therefore that's kind of how they kind of understand each other, their methods. Their reasons for doing something. So I kind of liked that, and both of them are kind of hiding from the past, but doing it in the shadows. They're out there, but they're not really moving forward. They're hiding from something. Cage says it himself. He doesn't do complications, and I like that. At least from the start. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. But it turns out Jessica Jones, is looking for him and whatnot, and she's kind of like stalking him. She knows he has these powers, and they eventually reveal himself at the end of episode 2. And he's hacking himself with this saw and whatnot. So that was great. Anybody noticed probably the Easter egg when she's first looking at Cage in the window with the woman. Shout out to that woman. But when he's first looking at the window of Cage, if I'm correct, that is an homage to like his actual outfit that he wear. Where it's kind of like an orangey black, but maybe that's just me. A couple of things here. I do have notes. What is it? Shout out to Melissa Rosenberg, the writer. I think she, and also the showrunner, she does a very good job at creating this world. Because one thing I know about Marvel is, or at least recently, is they're meshing different types of genres together to make one, great thing. The Netflix shows between Daredevil and Jessica Jones, they do a great job at kind of, or at least from what I'm seeing, is that they do a good job at actually making it seem like a comic book where, how most of these superheroes actually were all in New York and they can easily pop into anybody's story here and there. I like that. You can, obviously Daredevil's connected, obviously Cage, and you're going to see Punisher and all these characters eventually connect in the same dirty, gritty New York. And I like dirty, gritty New York. I like the opening intro also. The background music is also very old schoolish noir. It feels like that detective looking around. A couple of other things that were great in here. I think, actually, we'll go to some negatives. I didn't necessarily like, at least in episode 1, where they kind of just kept on beating you over the head too much. Like, I know she's an alcoholic in the comics, but they kept on beating you over the head too much, that the fact that she is an alcoholic. You see it everywhere. She's got bottles in kitchens. She's got bottles in the house. She's got a glass in her hand. She's sleeping with a bottle. It's just like, we get it. You could have, a sober token thrown in the trash can. People would have probably understood it. A couple of drinks here and here. But I feel like they kind of, just kept on, hey, she's an alcoholic. But they toned it down by episode 2. I think I saw maybe 1 or 2 drinks, and I got the point. You don't have to constantly keep on telling us she's a drunk. We get it. Other negatives, as I said, I thought Carrie Moss carried her role a little bit too stiffish. Is that a word? I don't know. And then she just pretty much, she didn't seem, her role, she's a commanding bitch, and that's good. That's her role. But at the same time, she didn't necessarily feel like she got into the role of the lesbian stuff. She just seemed awkward. You know, there was also an awkward sex scene between Cage and Jones, and maybe that was supposed to come off that way, you know, because obviously the 2 and 2 was like he says I'll break you. He was like, no, you won't. It was like I thought that was funny, but at the same time, I was like, it's kind of cringeworthy. You know, yeah. There's the supporting cast, you know, is fine. Everybody's got a story that eventually, hopefully, we will go on. Like I said, I only watched 2 episodes. Her friend Trish, you know, she's a news reporter and whatnot. That's great and all. You know, maybe I have to rewatch it to see some other Easter eggs, but I thought she was fine and she was good. I didn't care for her junkie or hobo friend in the apartment or her building. You know, that was pretty much nothing really to behold. It was there. Hopefully it gets better. Maybe it's something I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know too much going into this, so I'm just judging it off of a show. I'll try to look up more research to understand certain things, but for the most part, I didn't care for his character. He was just there. He seemed a little bit annoying. Yeah, you know, I liked it at the end when he finally revealed his thing, because eventually when she's looking for Cage and she's doing her private investigating, she does her thing, and then the wife that Cage is sleeping with, somebody's wife, and he doesn't know that, but eventually she tells him. They have a confrontation, and the lady's husband that Cage is actually sleeping with, and him and his friends go to the bar and they kind of fight, and then Jessica Jones is trying to save him, and then obviously Cage doesn't need help, because that's when it's revealed that, you know, Cage and Jessica Jones are obviously more than they appear on the surface. You know, Cage is just doing like Steven Seagal with ease fights. You know, he's breaking a bottle and like nothing hurting him at all, and I just thought that was just, hysterical, but also very well choreographed for the most part. You know, I thought it was very well done. They have their chemistry, and it does work. I think maybe in this series it just may be like friends, or it may just be like how they did in the comics from what I heard. It's just that, you know, whenever they need a quick one, you know, bang one out, they do it. You know, for me, if that's the case, then sure, I can understand that. But for me, I don't really see a relationship there other than like talking about their problems, because these people have problems. You know, these are real people, and that's what I liked. Going to David Tennant. David Tennant is very creepy, and he does his performance very well. To me, he reminded me of like a mind-fucking Riddler. You know, to me, like, he's very articulate, he's very smart, he's got his bravado, you know, when he's saying, you know, I'm your guest and whatnot. That was cool to see. So that's a very good scene. You know, David Tennant he doesn't seem like he's committed. You know, when he told the girl and the kids to kind of like go into the closet and she peed, I was just like, huh? So she's gonna like drop. I thought that was a little bit dark. I was like, yeah, don't keep the kids in the closet. Come on. You know, obviously there was a joke to be made there once they come out. But yeah, Jessica Jones, Mike Coulter is great. Kristen Ritter's great. The supporting cast hopefully gets a little bit more greater. I like the feel of the show. I like the noir tales. I like the narration. Narration could be hit or miss depending on where you go. But Jessica Jones, episode 1 and 2, it's a great start. You know, the first episode was pretty much a setup episode. You know, that's pretty much all it was. It didn't really go anywhere beyond that. But other than that, you know, Jessica Jones is a top-notch show. I'm willing to see where this goes because, it's good. It may be slow-paced for some people, but I think they're building up character careness. You know, you can't just throw everybody out there and expect somebody to stick. They're building up. They're taking their time. That's good. You know, I'm not supposed to like a character off headbeat. You know, I gotta watch a couple episodes to build up the arc, build up the story, and hopefully then we eventually care. But that's my review of episode 1 and 2, just kind of meshing everything together. I'm Chris Smith. Comment, subscribe, like that shit. If you don't, then, you know, whatever, I guess. But still, comment, subscribe, do something, yeah. But yeah, we'll be doing 3 and 4 tomorrow. So, it's been Chris Smith, signing out.